It is difficult for me to believe that it is the 20th anniversary of my daughter Helen Feather's death from cancer. During her illness, Helen helped raise over $300,000 for cancer projects, and the trust was set up on her death and continues to raise money for various projects. As a small dedicated charity, all funds go directly and quickly to our chosen cancer projects, and nothing goes on administration. The project we want to fund next is a trial on the drug low-dose Naltrexone and its effect on cancer. Here is Professor Dalgleish, world-renowned oncologist, to explain more.
I first became aware of a drug called low-dose Naltrexone when I was really curious as to why one of my patients was doing so well when they had a very severe disease which should be progressing. And they told me that they were getting low-dose Naltrexone from Dr. Bihari in New York. I went to see Dr. Bihari and questioned him about the rationale for using this drug, and also went through his great list of patients and outcomes. And I knew then that there was something real about this, and this could not be ignored. Because of this experience, when I had patients who could no longer take chemotherapy but were too well to go to palliative care and wanted something to be done, I started to prescribe low-dose Naltrexone. And I was staggered to see that in many of them the disease remained fairly stable, which was totally unexpected. So we started to use it in more and more conditions, and there have been cases where it's been used instead of chemotherapy with anecdotal fantastic results. When we looked at the effects of low-dose Naltrexone in the lab, we found that it blocks an inflammatory pathway that produces a growth hormone that nearly all cancers use. And this was quite staggering. This told me this is the most likely mechanism of action. And then we found that it sensitizes tumour cells, so they're more sensitive to being killed by chemotherapy. And indeed, in our latest publication, we've shown that you can get the same effect with half the chemotherapy dose across different tumour types and different chemotherapy agents. This has tremendous implications because the biggest problem with chemotherapy is toxicity, whereas if you have something that allows you to give a full course of chemotherapy at non-toxic doses, this could have a dramatic impact on outcome. There are reports in the literature of people who've been given low-dose Naltrexone because they didn't want standard treatment, and there are reports of complete responses, a famous one on tongue cancer, but there are several on lymphomas, and even some on pancreatic cancer, which is a very aggressive tumour. The effect of low-dose Naltrexone across a wide variety of conditions, including cancer, it could have a dramatic impact on government expenditure on health. In cancer, for instance, most of the drugs are about £5,000 a month, the new ones, and £6,000 every 3 weeks if you're having immunotherapy. At the moment, low-dose Naltrexone is only available privately, so patients have to pay for it themselves, but fortunately it is pretty cheap compared to all the other drugs. But it would be so much better if it was available on the NHS, because I believe it would reduce the NHS's drug budget considerably in cancer, let alone many of the other conditions. The big problem in taking this further into the clinic, as I have found, is that drug companies, they're very interested, but they feel that if they pay for the trials, they won't own the drug and it's generic and other people will make it. I actually think that this is a bit short-sighted, because if you do a trial for a certain condition and you show benefit, you can get a license for that, whatever the drug is. Obviously, unless it's fully patented, protected, you're not going to be able to roll it out into everything. But I think it would just recognise for one cancer, one trial, I think that would change everything. I've had several patients who've been on it for 5-7 years with very good control of aggressive tumours who stopped it usually because they've changed oncologists who said, I'm not going to treat you while you take this stupid unlicensed drug. So they've thought, well, I don't, it's done its job, I'll stop it. And all these cases, they relapse within 3 months. I mean, one of the most amazing patients that I have seen with stage 4 melanoma with disease in most organs about the body, including the brain, who after going on low-dose naltrexone has had complete resolution of a disease which has lasted now for over a decade. And that is truly amazing. We would not expect to see that with any other treatment, with the possible exception of the new immunotherapies. But unlike the new immunotherapies, this was non-toxic and very cheap. My biggest fear is that, having seen for myself how effective this drug is that if a trial is not done, and I'm one of the very few people who prescribe this drug for cancer in the entire country, when I stop or retire, it's just going to disappear because nobody else is going to do it because it's not approved. And so that's why it is so important to get a trial up and running and have it funded.